Greetings and salutations, one and all. Welcome to another exciting week of Siege of the Empire, where I, your host, Jordan, aka Mikey Games, are taking on a wonderful journey through the stars. Not through the stars. That's my other one. That's my other game. I apologize. Whatever. Doesn't matter. We're going to push through it. Taking a wonderful journey through the world of Warhammer with the help of my players. It's going to be awesome. A couple of things to note. First of all, this is episode number 50. God, isn't that exciting? We made it to episode 50. As well, this will be the last official episode of this arc. Not exciting. The next time you will see this is going to be Siege of Middenheim, which I'm going to make its own segment. Its own little special thing in and all of itself. So this episode is going to be a lot of the prep work leading up to that, what they're going to do to accomplish their goals, and to successfully lead about the siege of Middenheim. Isn't that awesome? Or, hopefully, the lack of siege. The assault on Middenheim, which might be what I call it. I don't know. We'll figure out a name. It's no big deal. We got 7 days. But today, let's focus on getting this done and doing all of this nonsense. I'm so glad to see everybody here. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be grand. It's going to be great. So without further ado... Oh, one more thing. Hannibal will not be here today. I will be playing part of Hannibal in so much as the plans that he has to make. Cool. Awesome. Fantastic. We're going to do the intro. I think we got a couple players that are going to be slightly okay. Oh, wait. Hold on. Hold on. The other thing we got to do here. Hey, look at that. We fixed this. You see this? It has his correct name now. Isn't that wonderful? Well, fantastic. Let's go ahead and throw it over to the players and see what's going on with them.
Excited.
Hello?
Hello, Jordan.
Probably not as much as you, Brian.
Why? Why not?
A lot of personal shit.
It's depressing.
Yep.
Well, why don't you tell us about your week? Maybe sans all the depressing shit.
Start. Pretty much killed my Sunday game. For starters. Because of more of like what I've been figuring out was 5e and DMing is that 5e is not my system to DM with. As much as I like try to play around rules and things of that sort, it doesn't contrive exactly what I want to do, and I'm like,
makes sense.
So, I am seeing if potentially, I can grab a DM off the, LFG off Reddit, see if I can get a DM for a game, and if not, then someone else just either one of the other players just DMs, and then we continue it that way. Because I like playing 5e, but as I've tried with multiple groups and multiple years, 5e is just not the system that I particularly enjoy DMing. I enjoy doing the storytelling and things of that sort, but when it comes down to some of the mechanics, it just doesn't fit well. So,
yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody, for sure. It's why I am thankful to have not locked myself into only Dungeons and Dragons, and I use a lot of experiences I gain from other systems in D&D. So, yeah, I think it's good to branch out, broaden your horizons a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be looking soon for Stars Without Numbers group. So, but other than that,
a lot of people playing it right now with the revised edition coming out. There's a lot of people playing it now.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I was looking at the revised edition, and they actually make warriors not in my opinion, from my previous experience with it. Then again, I didn't have the greatest experience with it. Warrior's not as shit, so there's that. Or it made it better. How about that?
Yeah, I've introduced my version of Stars Outnumber is so hacked at this point, just because you can do that with that system.
Mm-hmm.
We're currently working on using the profession system, or at least the profession skill, as being like your specialization, doing super unique, cool things by putting points into that. For example, our warrior in Olympus is going to specialize in becoming an armorer, so he's going to be able to like create and make all these mods for his guns that are going to make him better and awesome, super cool.
Sounds cool.
Matt's character, the psychic, he's going to specialize in like this fancy martial arts that only he will really know how to use because of his other abilities that he's gravitated towards. The other two characters, I'm sure, will coming up with something equally cool if they want to pursue that. Because I also don't want to make it like feel mandatory for them.
Right. But other than that, a lot of personal stuff has been happening with me. So mainly with relationship issues. So
apologies.
Yeah.
Just understand that you will make it through.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Will, have you made it through all of your archery training, or are you still a novice?
Well, I don't think I'm ever going to stop being a novice, but yes.
Oh, that's very little faith, Will.
Oh, so you mean Aaron? Yeah, I'm gonna fire back with some fucking savagery today.
But yeah, that's going great. Now I'm starting to get better and better groupings, or getting closer to the middle of the targets, which is always a good thing.
Is like the first time you did it, were you like sore by using muscles that you didn't even know that you had? Because I find with like the kind of, I'm gonna call it an oddball hobby, because I mean I think that we can all agree that it's not a common thing to practice archery or actively work towards it. Right, that's what I mean.
It's got out of fashion in recent years.
Yeah, that's obviously what I mean. But that you end up using muscles that you didn't even know you had.
Yeah, like a big one is just mere finger strength.
Yeah.
Because what actual strenuous things do you do with your fingers? And I've just invited myself up to a lot of comments on that one. But
play video games, obviously.
Yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Knitting.
Yeah, crocheting.
Yeah.
You sound like a person that would also play the piano.
Yeah, I can play the piano. So.
I called it. Anyway.
Okay, you need to play the piano as your next song. But
just go ahead and lug a piano around the world of Warhammer. Yeah, no big deal. NBD.
I mean,
It's
it can be like a keyboard.
Keyboard.
Yeah.
I think that now I have to make a Shadowrun game where Will is playing the electric keyboard that he just carries around with him, and that's like his...
I would love to do a Shadowrun game with that in here. That's
like your hacking dock, too?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, seems great. Seems fantastic.
Yeah. All
right. Great, that's good. Yeah, Brian, hi, hello.
Hello.
Tell us all about you. What's been going on with your week?
Not too much as normal. Kind of excited for the game today. Spent the last, hour and a half planning with everyone else. That was exciting. Put a whole week of work into 30 minutes. Pretty great.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
The one thing is, don't say I didn't warn you or tell you to be prepared.
I mean, you did, but we all have lives.
Just saying.
Well, I don't.
Well, we
I'm
know
just
that.
throwing it out there. I'm just putting it out in the wind.
No, I know.
What else, Brian? What have you been doing with yourself?
Got into Path of Exile with the release of Fall of Oriath. That was fantastic. Still is fantastic.
There's a lot of people playing Path of Exile right now.
Yeah, it's a better Diablo.
Right.
It's fantastic, and they just released it the expansion. So instead of 5 acts that you repeat a whole bunch of times, you just play acts 1 through 10 once, and you're at endgame. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I heard the one thing I've noticed about that game is there are a lot of elitists. Because some of the people that I've been watching play it, they will like get kind of bullied about their builds if they're not like hyper tuned in to be the best ever.
Yeah, so the problem with that is you can build however the hell you want, but at some point, if your build isn't good enough, you won't be able to progress anymore. Like, you'll just die too much to actually continue playing.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of builds that can get past that point and beat the story of the game. It's after that if you're not sort of tuned in, you won't be able to do mapping, which is endgame content, or like the Uber bosses and all that stuff. That's more what they're talking about. Because no one really cares about acts 1 through 10. No one cares about the story. They all care about the end game.
Well, see, I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is like I think mostly for people who stream it, they're certainly not trying to make their stream about hyper endgame Path of Exile, right? Like, that's just not a thing that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So they really are just care about acts 1 through 10 and maybe like dipping their toe in some other things.
Mm-hmm.
But people that see this don't understand and will simply just shit all over them.
Yeah, it's because all the like actual big streamers for Path of Exile only do that endgame content, or they do the races, which racing is an entirely different thing than the endgame stuff, or the story stuff for that matter. Racing is super cool. They do special things where like every rare enemy you kill, you get their effects on your character, and you spend like an hour to see how far you can get in the game. It gets really competitive.
Cool.
But yeah, that's how my life has been going.
Well, that's fantastic. Liam, since Megan is still not yet arrived, how have you been, sir? What's been going on with you?
Doing pretty well. Job search continues. Still haven't heard back from that previous interview, but wasn't expecting to. A cat cafe opened up in my neighborhood, so that's amazing.
Hell yes.
Excuse me?
You know what cat cafes are. I think we've literally talked about them.
Oh,
before.
no, I do. Oh. Run that by me again? Near you say?
I mean, you should just go work at the cat cafe, in my opinion.
It's volunteer staff. It's not like they have a huge budget.
Shame.
Disappointment.
Right?
I think most of them are run like that, though. Most of them are like nonprofit or like saving.
It's not that hard
rescue.
To get people who are willing to just hang out taking care of cats all day.
Right. Yeah, and
like
occasionally serving coffee.
Exactly. So yeah, that's that. Been pretty good.
Well, fantastic. Good to hear. Me personally, I've been watching basically every little tiny minuscule bit of the International because while I don't actively play right now, and I say right now because it's kind of a love-hate relationship.
Dota. Yes.
I still do have about 2,000 hours in Dota 2, and the International is essentially, for those that don't know, the Super Bowl of Dota 2. And the team that I wanted to win from the very beginning is still in the running. They're in the top 4 now. So I'm really hoping that Team Liquid pulls through. They had there's some drama though. Started off, they won the group stage, or at least out of their group, they won the group stage. Got immediately knocked down to the lower bracket after their first series, but they were able to take a game off of the team they played, and then have had to kind of grind their way through the lower bracket. And yesterday it was actually insane. But yesterday they had to play 2 series back to back because they had to play the one whether they either got eliminated or not, and then go immediately into the next team and play that one as well. And they had some like really long, intense games, and God, I can't even imagine they must be so tired. And they're actually they're gonna be playing very shortly coming up now, so we'll see. I believe in them, but they certainly do some strange things sometimes that make you want to pull your hair out if you actually care about the thing. Surprisingly, this has been a very Chinese-centric international, which, for those that are outside of the sport, you may not understand why it's a surprise, but Dota 2 actually does not have an amazingly dominant region. All the regions are fairly even throughout the entire of everything.
Not like League, where Koreans have won for the past like 4 years.
Correct, absolutely correct. And a good example of this is Team OG, who is they're a CIS team, so they're European. They won every single official major tournament leading up to this one, of which there were 7. Like, they won. They beat every other team that showed up, regardless of where they were from. They get to this tournament, and they got knocked down in, like, I think they're, like, they might be top 10 or top 8, but yeah, not even close to the end. So that's just how competitive this particular tournament is, and how it can really get to you, because right now the prize pool is nearing 25 million.
Well, fuck.
The winning team gets about 11 million right now. You win, you come in the top seat. So
yeah, Dota's prize pool is freaking huge.
Yeah, there's nothing that compares to it anywhere else ever.
League is actually getting real close lately. I think Worlds this year is already up to 10 million, and they're not even started yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, League just gets a huge sponsorship from everywhere, so that's where they're getting their money from.
It's actually surprising to me that League has such a bigger, like, it has a bigger following, but they just don't generate the money like Dota does from its community specifically. Obviously, there's sponsors and everything else, but the community around Dota is very deep pocketed when compared to League of Legends. So, but anyway, I've been dragging Megan along that journey with me, forcing her to watch all of the games with me.
Of course you have.
What did you?
Well,
That's why she's not here.
She's a big League player, so she at least understands the concepts. It's not like a lot of other people who have never played any of those games probably would be lost.
Yep.
But if you understand like the concepts of what a MOBA is, then you can do pretty good by watching.
Yeah.
But the hype train is real occasionally, and it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. Other than that, I have been working on a lot of game stuff for all of my games, one of which started yesterday. Was session number 1 of the Star Wars game.
Nice.
And it went really well. Traditionally, how everything happens for me, though, I design a thing, and this happens in this game all the time too. I design a thing, and then because the players get distracted by shiny objects, that thing takes like 2 or 3 sessions when I wanted it to take 1. So it just goes to show that there's no stopping player characters from identifying shinies and
never expect anything from the player.
Immediately responding to them with utmost haste.
Yeah, like a month and a half ago, my party and my Thursday game set sail for an island to track some guy down they wanted to shake down because they thought he was behind another scheme they had just foiled. And they got there, and I didn't say there was any problem in finding this person except that he wasn't in town. They would have to venture out to like his country home. But no, immediately, like one of them's casing the bank to rob it. A bunch of the others are going into the local Olympics. Some guy gets into a fight with a street gang and tries to teach them life lessons.
Yep, that all sounds correct. That all sounds 100% correct.
Like a fun time.
I can definitely relate. However, in relation to player characters doing insane things, there is a task set before all of you for this session. And while I explained it once, let me go over it once again. That your task, and it's not even really a should you choose to accept it moment. Your job.
We're well past that.
It's a you're already in it. Get ready.
Yeah, it's like a make the best of the situation that you already have gotten into. Your goal is to identify and design a plot that will assist the oncoming friendly force in both entering, seizing, and disposing of the occupation force that exists. And we've done some initial groundwork. We've gotten rid of at least one major lieutenant, which is certainly going to help your cause. The other one may or may not be a problem, even. We'll have to find out. We've coordinated some resistance movement. We have kind of inadvertently caused some chaos by kind of weakening one of the really higher ups, and that goes without saying. Understand the dragon moment when it burst from the temple and spewed acid everywhere was obviously climactic and amazing, but it should also be noted that whoever that was, who clearly is very in with Anders, was also weakened. His power was taken away from him in this staff, whatever magic this staff has behind it. So it is worth mentioning that you've also kind of crippled whatever that threat would have been in the future, which is great. Good job, everyone. By everyone, I mean Jericho and Farron in that particular regard. There's also been some initial groundwork on how the hell you're supposed to get in here or supposed to lead an assault here. Obviously, the plan always was to open the gate from the inside, and this is abstractly, obviously. Open the gate from the inside and allow the army to march in unopposed so that there were some advantage there, because sieging Mindenheim is perhaps the worst idea ever.
Yes.
Just because it is so self-sustainable and does not require imports from nearly anywhere. However, with that being said, there are some obvious complications. There are 4 distinct gates for the city itself. There's the cardinal directions: north, south, east, west, and they all have different aspects to them that make them better or worse for certain tactics. And I would like to leave this very open to the players to come up with an idea, or at least a couple of ideas. Obviously, I would like to provide guidance through the storytelling of like, hey, we want to figure out, is this a possibility? And, I help guide you down the path that would make it a possibility, because I think that the possibilities really here are endless, and it will require more that the party settles on a plan of action or a couple of plans of action, as opposed to trying to find a plan of action in the first place, if that makes sense. I think there's already been some discussion between the players as to what some possibilities are, some things that might be able to happen. And I think all of those were great. They all sound great. I like the ideas that have been coming out. But the purpose of the next couple of hours here are going to be to in game really figure out what we're going to do and set up, and that's where the gameplay is going to come from, is setting up these different areas, how we're going to coordinate these attacks, how we're going to coordinate this chaos we're going to spread, how we're going to, if we need to make a preemptive strike, where are we going to do that and how. So with that being the mindset as we move into the next part here, we should get to the ending of last session, where you all had finished slaying the roving band of undead, saving the woman and her child, and holding back up in Jericho's little hovel down in the bottom right-hand corner of our screen. And upon doing that, you had set to trying to figure out what the next step was, and you received 2 messages simultaneously, one being that the army was pushing themselves. They were basically on a forced march because time was of the essence, and that instead of having about 2 weeks that the party expected, you were cut down to about 1 week, 7 days. And in addition to that, there was the message from Kree that stated he had arrived with about 12 to 1,500 cavalry members that obviously don't require their mounts, but are here to assist. That consisted of the Lizardman cavalry, the Bear Riders from Kislev, and some of the knights who had decided to join of their own volition. And the knights had joined of their own volition because they knew they were going to help Morella, who had left a resounding impression, with the help from Farron, obviously, left a resounding impression upon them, and so they kind of dedicated themselves to the cause because of that. So you have a pretty good shock troop that is currently waiting outside the city in concealment. Or at least what you assume to be concealment, right? Because there have also been signs that the city has kind of been ramping up for something, right? We know that from the reinforcements that have been sent to the South Gate, and as well as some other kind of whispers throughout the streets. So I think that the best place to kind of start it is perhaps that night there's some talk about, like, what are we going to do? And then eventually you all realize, well, I think we just need to sleep on it for now. So the next morning, as you all arise, there's a scene where you all get seated around the table, or what represents a table in your hovel, Jericho. And in attendance is everyone. Morella and Farron and Obek and Aelin and Kira Malia and Hannibal and Jericho and Daniela, and I'm missing somebody, I'm sure.
The Spear Sisters?
Kira Malia, yeah, there you go.
Also, we have our guest prisoner.
Yeah, so you also have, there are also 3 civilians, right, basically. There is the woman and her child, who are probably at this juncture still fast asleep, along with Garulda's host, who seemingly has been kind of in the background, but also experienced some trauma the previous night. So they are probably sequestered in the other room at this point, not really interacting with the group of you unless interacted with. But they do represent some baggage, right? Like, you can't just set fire to the place and leave, because you have to also think about these other people. Or maybe you don't. I don't know. That's up to you guys.
Good choice of words there.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally up to you guys. I'm not going to stop you from setting fire to the place. We all know how effective that is at almost all times.
Very, if you want to call it a distraction. So
Jackson isn't here to appreciate the
Yeah.
reminiscence.
Yeah, I mean, there's always this. It's literally the first screen I have now. It just like I don't even like it. There's literally it says Gnome Bungalow is the name of the screen, and then immediately after it is main screen, which is where you guys all have your characters and the map and everything else. So it is literally more important than
The world.
Yes.
Yes. Nobody really wants to be ruler of Ashes.
Correct.
yes, indeed.
So, seated around a probably somewhat meager, or at least, it's probably not a hot breakfast, I would assume. Unless you guys, had the gall to light a small cook fire and heat up some rations or whatever you're eating nowadays.
Prestidigitation
porridge.
can do warm, not hot.
There you go, yeah. So it's slightly more than room temperature rations.
Warm porridge.
Which
It's good.
Which for the group of you really isn't that bad. You're used to kind of living on the land anyway, so for someone of your palates, I don't think it's terrible. But there is some consideration here for as you all are sitting there, probably in relative silence. Who breaks the silence with the first idea or plan or step that needs to be taken? No one?
I think actually Obek would, being as he's the scout. He's kind of, he doesn't really stand up, but he leans in closer and he says, "We need more information on the South Gate. We know almost nothing."
I agree.
The lizardmen outside, we might be able to get them to distract one of the gates. Maybe draw some of the attention away while we look out and scout it.
That doesn't sound like a bad plan. It would take time though to tell him. But we do have a week.
Sorry, am I to understand the idea here is that we have them attack from the outside so that we can scout better from the inside?
Maybe not attack, just a show of force, perhaps.
I just want to point out that unless they already know that our reinforcements are there, we're sort of committing as soon as we have them do anything.
We don't need it to be all of them, just a few.
Interesting. All right.
It's swampy. Lizard men are good. They can make themselves look far larger numbers than they are.
So is that implying that the distraction you want to be at the west gate, which leads into the swampy area?
Yes, where
Okay.
the trade routes are.
Yeah, because I don't know if that wasn't clear to me at least, but I gathered
sorry.
when you
No,
said
Jericho,
swampy.
that is not clear to Jericho.
Yeah, so
Yes,
I
that's
think that
okay.
yeah, with
Clarifying that then.
with the
At the
clarification
west
that
gate.
that does make sense. I mean, there's definitely and what he says is completely true. Like lizardmen, that's their fighting grounds, right? Like they would be dominant in that area. Should anyone from Midnight decide to make like a preemptive strike, that would certainly work to your advantage as far as the lizardmen are concerned.
How many more days away is the main army?
Well, I would assume only 6.
Yeah, it is a week
That's
from
not
from right now, basically.
Yeah. So. Well, we could do that. It's not necessarily a bad plan. And then we scout this South Gate, and then what?
Then we figure something out from there. Without knowing what's going to be blocking the army, we don't have too much.
This is true.
Well, all right, but let's think about not consequence. Let's consider
Risk.
maybe contingencies. If we do think that it's possible to open the south gate from whatever our scouting says, that's obviously the best way to get the army in, correct?
Most likely they're coming from the south, so
Yes. So, if we want to be able to get the army in, we're going to want that to be undefended so we can open it and get them inside the city as quickly as possible. Which means we're going to want their attention somewhere else. North. As much as I hate the idea of actually damaging the city any more than it already has, cutting off reinforcements does seem like a vital step in this.
An army that large marching into the city would not be to our benefit.
Right. So, we may want to disrupt the North Gate regardless of what else we're going to do. And East isn't exactly an option. But I can't help thinking the fact that it isn't actually an option for us doesn't mean that they're going to realize it's not an option for us. That might actually be our best line of misdirection. If we can orchestrate things to in some way imply that we think that we can actually move the bulk of our army through the East Gate, that could potentially draw away a considerable number of their forces.
well, that would certainly be interesting to try to convince them that a broken bridge is useful to us.
Well, we got into the city through teleportation. They don't know what our capacities are.
This is also true.
Besides, you think that Farron and I can't give them a show that would be convincing?
Well,
As for
more than
our,
certain you twos could.
as for our lizard folk allies, given that you point out that we're going to be most effective in the swamp, it seems like a shame to try to send them anywhere else. So, perhaps, and this is again assuming that we don't find the south gate is completely impossible to open, the goal that we're looking for here is, let's say, block or break the North Bridge, misdirection at the east to imply that there are going to be forces pouring through there to draw whatever forces they have inside the city away, lizard folk attacking from the west, apparently acting as if they're in much greater numbers than they might appear otherwise, and then opening the south gate when they won't expect it. Sounds about right?
Well,
That sounds good to me. It sounds like a very intelligent plan.
yes. It seems to be at least somewhat good, I suppose.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm just a spy and saboteur. Just sort of talking out loud, you know,
I thought you were a
hometown
doctor.
advantage type of thing. You thought what?
I thought
meant
you were a doctor.
Look, I've been a lot of things.
I can tell. We need to do some catching up then. But for now, I suppose trying. The best question is who goes towards the south gate to find out? Because if we go too many, they start figuring out that, well, we're spying.
Fair enough.
So if we draw
Well,
attention away, who's there to really look at us?
I can blend in just about anywhere. I suppose Obek might be best suited to communicate with our allies in the West.
That seems fitting.
I would obviously prefer it if we could find a more secure place for Hannibal to do his work if he's going to be developing something to damage or block or break one of the gates.
Yeah, and I think that Hannibal at that moment, he kind of like snaps out of his stupor, like that he has typically when you're having big, in-depth conversations that he doesn't really care about. And I think he says, he goes, "Yeah, I think I've got an idea, but," and he kind of like assesses the room. He like looks and he's like, I think it's better if perhaps I do this part myself, although it will be dangerous. I think that I can hopefully provide enough of a distraction at the North Gate and Bridge area to allow this plan of yours to work. But, and he looks at...
to ask, I mean, there are rumors, but most of you were in Nuln. When there was a particular fire.
Yeah, and he goes, that never happened. It's not a real story.
Huh.
There's a sideways glance that comes from Morel.
Good to know.
Yeah. But he continues with, I may need some assistance, and seeing as the type of danger I'll be going into, and he looks over at Kira and Malia, and he says, I would like for them to accompany me, if they are not needed in the rest of your plans. It would make this more assuredly work.
No. I have no objections to that. Of course.
Well, you seem to work together well enough so far, and they do sort of, no offense, but stand out.
Yeah, and he says, yes, well, the advantage is we wouldn't be visible for most of the time. We would be traveling... Well, there's some things I must find, I think, that have a good idea of where to. Based on what you've told me about these sewer systems that run underneath us. And he kind of looks at Jericho.
If you need a map or something, just let me know.
He's like, if that is something that is able to be provided, then yes, that probably would help.
Depends where you need to go, but I know my way around most of the surface. I mean, not the actual surface, just beneath the surface.
Yeah, and I think he nods.
Ayla, you've been quiet this morning.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was dozing off. What were you all talking about?
Our plans to retake this. At least
Cut
the
them off on the
stepping point.
north, distract them to the east and west, open the gates to the south.
Yes, well, you are the tacticians. I think that sounds about good to me.
This is where Obek comes in. He says, do you know if your goddess would be able to help us? I know Chotek in moments like this likes to put in his hand.
Oh, most certainly. I've used her quite a bit at this point, though. Last time I tried to contact her, it was a bit muddy, but I will certainly try. Do you have something in mind? She kind of looks at him like, you seem particularly interested.
I know when battles are going on, the gods like to be involved. At least ours do. Especially one as big as this.
That is a good point, although I admit I was thinking actually that you seem to have proven you've got more of an aptitude for dealing with the common folk and inspiring them than glance around the table. Some of us do. And there is still, of course, the civilian resistance and people that will want to move out of any areas where we're expecting there to be major battles.
Yes, if you think it'd be prudent, I could certainly lead a small band to get people out of the areas. Oh, I was going to say danger zone. Danger zone! Areas of greatest danger.
Lana! Lana! Oh, God. a good joke.
Fantastic. Well, I think that leaves. So, who's still looking for something to do?
Yeah, who does it? I mean, I guess that's Morella, right? You don't have a specific task yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and I guess really it's like the NPCs too. Like Daniela maybe goes with Aelin for some protection.
That's kind of figured, in my opinion.
So really it's Morella. I think that doesn't have a clear goal here.
And
Yep.
possibly Farron.
Possibly Farron, depending on. I thought you were going to utilize him to figure out what you possibly could do about the east and distracting.
Fair.
So, yeah, it comes down to just Marilla, and she's like,
Well, there's the loose cannon we can't afford.
what would she say? Well, what would you like me to do? Jericho.
I may have a bit more of a casual relationship with you than your current bard, but I'm not sure I'm quite in the position to be giving you orders yet.
By all means, do so.
Huh.
My rank means, my status means nothing in this situation.
Well, as far as status goes, I think actually you've probably got our best connection with the army proper. At least, well, apart from its leadership, maybe.
Right.
So yeah, like
So-
some options here is, you know, Morella, there are knights that have come here specifically because of you. Maybe figuring out a way to help use them in some manner to go along with the rest of your plans here. Because, and I think Hannibal would mention that if he doesn't find what he's looking for, his plan isn't foolproof, so we should probably have a backup, just in case.
Yeah. So, well, I could assist Hannibal if Hannibal gets himself into more trouble. And there's a sideways glance that comes over. You seem to do that often.
Hannibal considers for a long moment, before saying, and again, like, looking at pointedly at members within the room, probably lingering a little too long on Aelin and Daniela, before saying, I think that it is best if I take this upon myself.
I meant it as in this, Hannibal. I don't necessarily go with you, but should you fail in your task, I would be nearby.
Yeah, I mean, you could always sit there and pull your spear out and challenge the army. That would certainly distract them for a time.
Solid 20 seconds.
22.
But
Oh, sure.
it's... And Hannibal is like...
Yourself against an entire army.
It goes without saying that there have been times where small numbers of people have held, well, a narrow area for much longer than they should have. I think that, based on what we've seen here and how this city was taken in the first place, it's clear that they use some sort of deception. There's very little damage to any of the structures. It's reasonable to assume that perhaps they don't have a way to break down one of the gates. And if they do, they are unwilling to use it. If we were to hold one, it makes sense that maybe we could hold it for long enough. In fact, if you could hold longer than 22 seconds, an hour, that might buy enough time to get what we need done. The rest of the areas.
The point about deception is interesting. It does seem like they're doing their best to pretend that as if business is ordinary for the entire city, even when they've got the undead guarding buildings.
Yes.
We still don't know why that is,
pointed.
do we? It's not as if people don't realize that they've been invaded.
Yes, and there's a distinct lack of the chaos in the streets. In fact, here in the Wind is perhaps the only place where the undead walk freely.
So that's probably worth looking into if someone's got some free time.
Yes, as I said, it seems like they've gone out of their way to not break down any of the infrastructure, aside from the temple, of course. So, Farron, what are your thoughts on the whole thing? Because you were part of the original scouting party, kind of went around to the different areas, sans the south gate, because you weren't able to get close enough to see what the heck what was going on there.
I've seen enough guards at gates to know that's some serious guarding. If you can't even get close to the gate. Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on all that's been said?
I do like the idea of storming from the west gate, even if it's maybe difficult to traverse, but with our lizard men folk, it would buy the rest of the main army time to progress through it. I do believe the south gate will be incredibly heavily guarded, no matter what distractions we pull.
From the sounds of it, you talk of that they seem to are waiting for something. Is that correct, Farron?
Well, as they probably know of reports that our army is marching up from the south. What a better place to reinforce?
So, maybe one other thing that we need to deal with before the army gets here is trying to find out what their plans are for holding the city.
Well, I imagine there's only really 3 ways to get in. 4 if we're being optimistic.
Sure, but they'd be fools if they didn't at least consider the possibility that we'll have some kind of plan they're not expecting.
Right. One of them is guarded outside of it by masked hosts. The next is guarded well, and that's towards the direction that our allies are heading. And then there's the other one. That seems to be the least guarded.
Always suspicious. So, you make an interesting point. If they're expecting us to come from the south, then maybe the misdirection that we want isn't to suggest that we're actually coming from the east. A bit too easy to see through that. Maybe what we want to convince them of is that there's no way that we could possibly want to come through the south. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm a little concerned about leaning on you too much, Hannibal, for a variety of reasons that I don't think I need to explain, but I'm sure there are ways that we could make the Southgate seem impassable without necessarily obliterating anything. I was thinking something more along the lines, perhaps, of, I don't know, deadly gas,
Yeah, I think Hannibal
horrifying curses.
that kind of scratches
thing.
his chin for a moment and says, "Yes, but the question is how to accomplish that without actual deadly gas."
Well, that's sort of where the misdirection comes in.
Make it look like something that it isn't.
We've got a week to figure this kind of thing out.
Might be possible. Might also tie into what I'm doing with the North Gate.
You're really not going to tell us anything about that until you're done, huh?
I think I'd rather keep it a secret.
Yeah, that I get that a lot.
Yeah, and he just gives you like a big cheesy smile. However,